Good evening, Dharma brothers and sisters, both online and in person, and welcome to Rongton Buddhist Training College Tuesday evening philosophy classes for term 4 of 2023. Firstly, in case there's anyone new on Zoom, I'll briefly introduce our teacher, Lama Choedak Rinpoche. He is the founder, spiritual director and teacher of our community. He was born into a nomad family in Tibet who escaped when Tibet was invaded. He trained as a monk under some of Tibetan Buddhism's most eminent masters of this generation in the Tibetan settlements of Nepal and India. As part of this training, he completed a 3.5-year solitary meditation retreat, earning him the title Lama, or spiritual teacher, in the Buddhist tradition. He later received the title of Rinpoche, High Lama, in recognition for his translation work and his expertise in transmitting traditional teachings to contemporary audiences such as ourselves. So before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the benefactors and sponsors, as well as our committee and technical team that have made these teachings available for all of us. And this term's topic is the Jatakamala, the garland of the previous lives of the Buddha that he spent as a Bodhisattva on his way to final liberation. So on that note, I'll pass you over to Rinpoche, who will go into more depth of the meaning of these teachings and lead us with the introductory prayers. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening and hello. Thank you for joining me and all the Tibetan Buddhist Society's friends on this regular weekly teachings on school term. So we will, as usual, most of you know, we do the prayers, which is to renew our refuge, that we have refuge, we are safe. When we turn to Dharma, we are much safer than otherwise. So it's very important to acknowledge that we have refuge. We have earned lots of merit to found and realize. And we are not wrong view holders. We are those who believe in the Buddha and his teachings. We believe that we had many lives before, and if chances are we will have many more lives in the future as well, depending what kind of thing we have ordered. So therefore, these teachings we will do on this term will greatly benefit us and will boost our good merit to have refuge in the incredible past lives stories of the Buddha. So let's do the refuge in kindling our refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, Sangha, and more importantly to practice the Dharma through kindness to sentient beings, to be patient with sentient beings, to understand sentient beings who are sad, who are angry at you, but don't get that their anger and sadness doesn't overwhelm you, but instead you practice the Bodhisattva's teachings, so that we are able to remain equanimous. We don't get tipped over by one to the other. We are able to maintain the balance equanimously. And with a little bit of joy in being able to do that, really. I mean, if you have refuge and you can see, you are safe. It doesn't really matter what's out there, what's happening, if you are not childishly reacting. So that's joy, the joy. It says, may the beings have happiness that doesn't turn into sorrow. Most people suffering happiness very, very suffering already. Happiness is just very thin layers. quickly turns sour. But when you have joy in the Dharma, then you are thickly coated. You're suffering proof. You are reaction proof because you have refuge. So that's why these prayers that we do at the very beginning are themselves very precious teachings and meditations. So let's do that, everyone. Thank you. Ayenda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Aite Refuge Enlightenment Bhavacha Ayendala Ajare Buddha Vujuvebi Enda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Aite Refuge Enlightenment Bhavacha Ayendala Acharya Buddha Vujuvebi Enda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Aite Refuge Enlightenment Bhavacha Ayendala Acharya Buddha Vujuvebi. May all beings have happiness and a cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and a cause of suffering. May they know a powerful happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion of those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and a cause of suffering. May they know a powerful happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, those near and far. May all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far, according to the intelligence and predisposition of it. Veda Yajanda Dharma Agrelo and Kama Vigos. We are a little bit behind schedule to put up the notice on Zoom as well as sending, but all of you have made it. Thank you very much. So firstly, the background of the Jataka. Jataka means birth. Jati means birth, and the Kamala means the garland of births. So it means Buddha remembered all of his past lives, not before he was enlightened. I'm sure he would have got enlightened, but after he got enlightened in Bodh Gaya, he reflected as what to do of his realization. Then he had all this memory, flash memories of the past lives came one after another. He just remembered all of them. And then later on, each of these stories were told prompted by certain events that occurred with the Buddha or someone else, or with mostly about other people. And when they bring about these issues, then he would straight away remember what role he was played in that past life, who was that in that life, who is that person in this life. And so he was able to tell everybody, oh, you were that, I was that, do you remember? Oh, people say, gosh, I don't, but you do. Something. So incredible, really, and everybody just dropped the jaw, so to speak, every time he told the story. How many encounters and relationship that he had with people in those lives, not necessarily as human beings, and quite a lot of the times as animal bodhisattvas and as others. So these stories are not. These stories are all told by Buddha himself, and then all the disciples, the arhats, Buddha's own immediate disciples who heard them, they of course remember every story. It's not forgettable, and so that telling the stories of the past lives of Buddha became very good way to hit the nail on the head, so to speak, about the belief in the more than one lives. We would have had, we can't remember, but not remembering doesn't mean they didn't happen. And not knowing the existence of something doesn't mean they are proof that didn't exist. It just proves that we don't know. Proof that we don't exist. Proof that there is no gold under the earth. There's no uranium, no oil. Like 200 years ago, people never discovered oil. People never discovered gas. People never discovered all these things. That doesn't mean they didn't exist. So Buddha became like a treasure of memory telling. And because Buddha told the story, all his disciples remember, and many of them it became cause for them to believe deeper and have faith in the existence of past lives and become more cautious of the things they do in this life, because they will have consequences. If you do this to him or her, then it will have this kind of consequence. You will be born like that, and so on and so forth. And then these stories that Buddha told, what not only became in the memory of his disciples, all of them were translated into writings and stories and arts. Most of the oldest Buddhist temples in India, even here as close as us here in Borobudur, those huge, the temple of Borobudur, all of balustrades, all the pillars, all the panels that are built in 5th century, 5th century. Of course, there are other much older temples like 1 century before Christ. That's just 200 years after Buddha passed away. There were many temples, rock carvings. All the carvings are actually all these live Jatakamala stories. And they're so deeply kind of carved that nobody can erase it, So when they piece together, then all the monasteries, wherever Buddhism spread, they all copied those stories on the walls, on the pillars, on the rocks, all the way from China to Afghanistan to Japan. All the Buddhist temples have these carvings and reliefs and canvas and frescos and all that. That's a visual art, yeah. But the actual collection of the Jatakamala stories are considered to be at least 500 or more. So there are two two kinds of collection of Jatakamala story. In the Pali tradition, they have many Jatakamala stories, and they are usually ascribed to different Indian Mahasiddhas or scholars of the time. And then there is one written by Arya Sura. Arya Sura is Mahayana Sanskrit Buddhist scholar. He compiled together 34 of the Jatakamala stories. So over these weeks we are going to go through, I will go between various texts I have. I have both the Sanskrit translation as well as the Pali translation. So, but I will first start tonight with a few stories, some stories that are directly related with Buddha, and most of them are Buddha, and some people are related, So the print is very, very small, and my vision is getting smaller as well. So I will read through this. These particular Jatakamala stories are stories of the Buddha's former lives, which is translated and edited by E.B. Cowell and W.H.D. Rouse. These are two big volumes. They're not available online. But the translation of Arya Suras from Sanskrit is available in English online as well. So, but tonight we will start with the story number 163 from volume number 2. And this story, all of these stories were told by Buddha himself. Yeah, okay, and then. So it's the topic of the stories are usually to do with certain morals of Buddhist virtues, Buddhist practices, and so this story, the master told at Jetavana. Jetavana is the grove that's sponsored by Anathapindika in Shravasti. Most of these stories were told in Shravasti. Why? Because Shravasti is the place where Buddha spent 24 years. So most of the teachings are held actually in Shravasti rather than in Varanasi. Varanasi is only the first sermon he gave, but most of the sermons, when you read the sutras, they all talk about Jetavana. Jeta means name of the Prince Jeta. Vana means grove. Vana means grove or forest. So the Prince Jeta had this beautiful park, and he didn't want to do anything or let anything. But when Anathapindika wanted to bring the Buddha and create a Buddhist community there, he wanted to purchase a good plot of land, and the most appropriate land he saw was Prince Jeta's grove. Prince Jeta is the prince of the king of Shravasti, whose name is Prasenajit, who was born on the same birthday of the Buddha, by the way, and Angulimala and Angulimala also is from Shravasti. Anathapindika is also from Shravasti. So you've got to really know the Buddhist identities when we talk about this story, because all these stories about people in Buddha's life and places and geographies. And so why we're talking about Jetavana is that King Anathapindika bought off Prince Jeta by giving gold that can cover the whole park, and then he bought it. Otherwise Prince Jeta wouldn't sell. Anyway, so right now it is one of the 8 Buddhist sites in India. So this story occurred there. This story, the master, is referred to the Buddha, told at Jetavana about arbitrary giving of alms. So talking about giving small things, how much merit or benefit there is. We hear that Shravasti, a family, used sometimes to give alms to the Buddha and his friends. Sometimes they used to give to the heretics, or else the givers would form themselves into companies, or again the people of one street would club together, or the whole of the inhabitants would collect voluntary offerings and present them. On this occasion, all the inhabitants had made such a collection of all necessaries, but councils were divided, some demanding that it be given to the heretics, some speaking for those who follow the Buddha. Each party stuck to their point, the disciples of the heretics voting for the heretics, and the disciples Buddha for the Buddha's company. Then it was proposed to divide upon the question, and accordingly they divided. Those who were for the Buddha were in the majority. So their plan was followed, and the disciples of the heretics could not prevent the gifts being offered to the Buddha and his followers. The citizen gave invitation to the Buddha's company. For 7 days they set rich offerings before them, and on the 7th they gave over all the articles they had collected. The master returned thanks, after which he instructed the hosts of people in the fruition of the path. Next he returned to Jatakamala. When his followers had done their duties, he delivered our Buddha's discourse standing before his sainted chamber, into which he then retired. At evening time, the brethren talked the matter over together in the hall of truth. Friend, how the heretic disciple tried to prevent this from coming to the saints. Yet they could not do it. All the collection article was laid before the saints on feet. Ah, how great is the Buddha's power! What is this you are talking about now together? Asked the master. Buddha came, Buddha must be, he just must have overheard this. Asked the master, coming in, they told him, brethren, said he, this is not the first time that the disciples of the heretics have tried to thwart an offering which should have been made to me. They did the same before, but always these articles have been finally laid at my feet. So saying, he told them the tale of the past life. So that is the actual thing happened in that life. And Buddha said, this is not the first time I tell you what happened in the past. So past was, once upon a time there lived in Benares a king Susima, and a Bodhisattva was the son of his chaplain's lady. When he was 16 years old, his father died. The father, while lived, was master of ceremonies in the king's elephant festivals. He alone had right to all the trappings and appointments of the elephants which came into the place of festival. By this means, he gained as much as 10 millions at each festival. At the time of our story, the season for an elephant festival came around, and the Brahmins all flocked to the king with these words, "O great king, the season for an elephant festival has come, and festival should be made. But this year elephant's son is very young. He knows neither the 3 Vedas nor the lore of elephants. Shall we conduct the ceremony?" To this the king consented. Off went the Brahmins delighted. "Aha," said they, "we have barred this lad from performing the festival. We shall do it ourselves and keep the gains." But the Bodhisattva's mother heard that in 4 days there was to be an elephant's festival. "For 7 generations, thought she, we have managed the elephant festival from father to son. The old custom will pass from us, and our wealth will all melt away." She wept and wailed. "Why are you weeping?" asked the son. She told him. Said he, "Well, mother, shall I conduct the festival?" "What, you, sonny? You don't know the 3 Vedas or the elephant law. How can you do it?" "When are you going to have the festival, mother?" 4 days from now on, my son." Where can I find teachers to know the 3 Vedas by heart and all the elephant law? Just such a famous teacher, my son, lives in Takshila. Takshila is a present day in Pakistan, Pakistan. So even in those past lives, Takshila was very important. In the realm of Gandhara, 2,000 leagues away. This is talking from Varanasi to Takshila. Mother, says he, our hereditary right we shall not lose. One day will take me to Takshila. One might be enough to teach me the 3 Vedas and the elephant law. On the morrow I will journey home, and on the 4th day I'll manage the elephant festival. Weep no more. With these words he comforted his mother. Early next morning, he broke his fast and set out all alone for Takshila, which he reached in a single day. That's unbelievable. That's very far, Then seeking out, because he was a Bodhisattva, remember? Then seeking out the teacher, he greeted him and sat on one side. Where have you come from? Asked the teacher. From Banaras, teacher. To what end? To learn from you the 3 Vedas and the elephant law. Certainly, my son, you shall learn it. But, sir, said our Bodhisattva, my case is urgent. Then he recounted the whole matter, adding, in a single day I have traversed the journey of 2,000 leagues. Give me your time for this one night only. 3 days from now there's to be an elephant festival. I will learn the whole after one lesson. The teacher consented. Then the lad washed his master's feet and laid before him a fee of 1,000 pieces of money. He sat down on one side and learned his lesson by heart. As day broke, even as the day broke, he finished the 3 Vedas and elephant law. Is there any more, sir? Asked he. No, my son, you have it all. Sir, he went on, in these books such a verse comes in too late. Such another has gone astray in the reading. This is the way to teach your pupils for the future. And then he corrected the teacher's knowledge for him. After an early meal, he took his leave, and in a single day he was back in Banaras, greeting his mother. Have you learned your lesson, my boy? Said she. He answered, yes. She was delighted to hear it. Next day, the festival elephant was prepared. 100 elephants were set in array with golden trappings, golden flags, all covered with the network of fine gold. And all the palace courtyard was decked out. There stood the Brahmins in all of their fine gala dress, thinking to themselves, now we shall do the ceremony, we shall do it. Presently came the king in his splendor, and with him the ornaments and other things were used. The Bodhisattva, apparelled like a prince, at the lead of his suite, approached the king with these words, is it really true, O great king, that you are going to rob me of my right? Are you going to give other Brahmins the managing of this ceremony? Have you said that you mean to give them to the various ornaments and vessels that I use? Or, he repeated the first stanza as follows. 5 crore black elephants with tusks all white are thine, in gold caparison bedight, to thee and thee I give, dost thou say, remembering my old ancestral right. The king Susima, thus addressed, then repeated the second stanza. 5 crore black elephants with tusks all white, all mine in gold caparison bedight. To thee and thee I give them, so I say, my lad, remembering thine ancestral right. Then a thought struck the Bodhisattva and said, Sir, if you do remember my ancient right and your ancient custom, why do you neglect me and make others the master of your festival? Why, I was told that you did not know the 3 Vedas or the elephant law, and that is why I have caused the festival to be managed by others. Very well, sir. Is there anyone amongst all the Brahmins who can recite the portion of the Vedas or the elephant law against me? Let him stand forward. Not in all India is there anyone to save me who knows the three Vedas and elephant law for the ordering of an elephant festival. Proud as a lion's roar, rang out and answer. Not a Brahmin durst rise and contend with him. So the Bodhisattva kept his ancestral right and conduct the ceremony laden with riches, and he returned to his own home. Then when the master ended the discourse, he declared the truth and identified the birth. Some entered the first path, some on the second, some on the third, some on the fourth. So meaning this is stream entry, once returner, non-returner, and arahant. That's referred to that, first, second, third. Maya was at that time my mother. So it's talking his mother, his present life's mother Maya Devi, was also his mother at that time. King Shuddhodhan was my father. Ananda was King Sushima. Shariputra was the famous teacher. And I myself was the young Brahmin. So that's the kind of, what you call, past life relationship of the Buddha and his mother, his father, and Ananda. So what this kind of story would mean is that we often wondered, certain things happen in our life, in particular key members of our family, and whether what happened we liked it or we didn't like it, or we took a great sort of insult or hurt, upset or whatever. So we need to therefore understand them gently, and we have lots of unfinished karma from the past dealings. Some of them repeat again and again. No matter what somebody does, and that's what they does. Because their karmic cycle takes a long time for them. And whatever, in this case, Buddha, in both cases, almost like he was neglected, His rights were not honored, and they were actually almost overlooked him. So the karma of the past life that he experienced and the identity that he had in that life, and the identities of an individual such as his mother, such as his mother, such as his father, such as his cousin Ananda, and such as his main disciple Shariputra, were all featured in those past lives. So this is really what is important for us, is to we don't remember like that. We don't remember exactly who and what we did to whom and what were they and so on, to the extent of why we have such and such as our wife or husband or mother or what of these, and why they're doing this, and why we are very dedicated to them, or why they're very so kind to us, and even though we are not quite fulfilling their expectation, they're so giving. So we should think like that. We should say, oh, incredible, So I have all these people in my life, and they have been very kind to me life after life, So we should therefore rejoice those that are there. But those things that those things which we have gone through some difficulty, yes, some for some unfinished karmic reasons, I am attracting myself in this kind of karmic predicament, and these people are also forced and pushed by the wind of karma to be in the situation where we have to go through this together. So I must tolerate them, however difficult it is. Maybe not repeat this to happen again in the future. And so that's why it's so Jatakamala is a story, not only saying, wow, what that was him, this was Buddha, this, but not only that, but see, we too are. You wouldn't believe how many lives we have had. Maybe we haven't had caught many lives, every life being bodhisattvas. But maybe we can have starting to have bodhisattva life. Because we have bodhisattva vows, we have heard bodhicitta teachings, we are very incredibly inspired by the teachings of the bodhisattva vow, and so on. So that's really the morale of this kind of story is to inform us about not only of the knowing about the Buddha and his specific life, but what teaching does it got for us to pay attention to. So that's that. Now I'm going to turn to another story I have picked because I had a little bit of reading this afternoon. Yeah, this is also good. This story is, yes, again, this story is also told by the Buddha. Of course, they're all told by Buddha, so you know. And this is a story that the master told again in Jetavana about a faint-hearted practitioner. Brother means practitioner, or monastic. The circumstances will be set forth in the Shravasti birth in the 11th book. When the master asked his brother if he really were faint-hearted, as was said, he replied, "Yes, blessed one." To which the master said, "What, brother? In former days did you not gain supremacy over the kingdom of Benares, 12 leagues either way, and give it to a baby boy like a lump of flesh and nothing more, and all this just by perseverance? And now that you have embraced this great salvation, are you to lose heart and faint?" And he told the story of olden days. So this is talking about the story of the faint-hearted person. Once upon a time, when the Brahmadatta was king of Benares, there was a village of carpenters, not far from the city, in which 500 carpenters lived. So you can tell Varanasi was a big city. They would go up the river in a vessel and enter the forest, where they would shape beams and planks for house building and put together the framework of 1-story or 2-story houses, numbering all the pieces from the main post onwards. These then they brought down into the riverbank and put them all aboard. Then, rowing downstream again, they would build houses to order as it was required of them, after which, when they received their wage, they went back again for more material for the building, and in this way they might make their livelihood. Once it befell that in the place where they were at work in shaping the timbers, a certain elephant trod upon a splinter of acacia wood, which pierced his foot and caused it to swell up and fester, and he was in great pain. In his agony, he caught the sound of these carpenters cutting wood. "There are some carpenters will cure me," thought he, and limping on 3 feet, he presented himself before them and lay down close by. The carpenters, noticing his swollen foot, went up and looked. There was a splinter sticking in his feet. With the sharp tool they made incision about the splinter, and tying a string to it, pulled it out. And then they lanced the gathering and washed it with warm water and doctored it properly. This is a nice word, doctored it properly. In a very short time, the wound was healed. Grateful for this cure, the elephant thought, "My life has been saved with the help of these carpenters. Now I must make myself useful to them." So, even animals. So this saying, the animals really feel grateful. So grateful to you. This means if you harm animals, that will be same. "I must make myself useful to them." So ever after that, he used to pull up trees for them, or when they are chopping, he would roll up the logs and bring them their adzes and any tools they might want, holding everything in his trunk like grim death. And the carpenters, when it was time to feed him, used to bring him each a portion of food, so that he had 500 portion in all. So he get fed by 500 people. Now this elephant had a young one, white all over, the magnificent, high-bred creature. The elephant reflected that he was now old, then he had better bring his young one to serve the carpenters, and he himself left free to go. So without a word to the carpenters, he went off into the wood and brought his son to them, saying, "This young elephant is son of mine. You saved my life, and I give him to you as a fee for your leechcraft." Leechcraft. From henceforth, what the leechcraft means? Look it up. Look it up. What leechcraft means. Jamyan's doing that. He'll tell me in a minute. And henceforth he shall work for you. So he explained to the young elephant that it was his duty to do the work which he had been used to do himself, and then went away into the forest, leaving him with the carpenters. So after that time, the young elephant did all their work faithfully and obediently, and they fed him, and they had fed as they have fed the other, which with 500 portions for a meal. His work was done. The elephant would go play about in the river and then return again.
It's an archaic word for the art of healing.
Oh, I see. Leechcraft is archaic word for art of healing. Okay. The carpenter's children used to pull them. Carpenter's children used to pull him by the trunk and play all sorts of pranks with him in water and out. Now noble creatures, be they elephants, horses, or men, never dung or stale in the water. So this elephant did nothing of the kind when he was in the water, but waited until he came out to the bank. On one day, rain had fallen up river, and by the flood, half-dry cake of his dung was carried into the water, into the river. This floated down the Benares landing place, where it stuck fast in a bush. Just when the king's elephant keepers had brought down 500 elephants to give them a bath, but the creatures scented this soil of a noble animal, not one would enter the water, went up their tails, and went off they all ran. The keepers told this to the elephant trainers, who replied, "There must be something in the water then." So orders were given to cleanse the water, and there in the bushes this lump was seen. "That's what the matter is," cried the men. So they brought a jar and filled it with water. Now powdering the stuff into it, they sprinkled the water over the elephants, whose bodies then became sweet. At once they went into the river and bathed. When the trainers made the report to the king, they advised to secure the elephant for his own use and profit. The king accordingly embarked upon a raft and rowed upstream until he arrived at the place where the carpenters had settled. The young elephant, hearing the sound of drums as he was playing in the water, came out and presented himself before the carpenters, when one and all came forth to do honor to the king's coming, and said to him, "Sir, if woodwork is wanted, what need to come here? Why not send and have it brought to you?" No, good friends," the king answered. "It is not for wood that I came, but for this elephant here." "He is yours, sir," but the elephant refused to budge. "What do you want me to do? Do gossip elephants?" asked the king. "Order the carpenters to be paid for whatever they have spent on me, sir." willingly befriend, and the king ordered 100,000 pieces of money to be laid by his tail and trunk, and by each of his 4 feet. But this was not enough for the elephant. Would he go? He would not. So each of the carpenters was given a pair of clothes, and each of their wives robes in dress, and nor did he omit to give enough whereby his playmates, the children, would be brought up. Then, with a last look upon the carpenters and the women and the children, he departed in company with the king. To his capital city, the king brought him, and the city and the stable were decked out with all magnificence. He led the elephant around the city in solemn procession. Thence into the stable, which was fitted up with splendor and pomp. There he solemnly sprinkled the elephant and appointed him for his own riding. Like a comrade, he treated him and gave him the half of his kingdom, taking as much of him as he did for himself. After the coming of this elephant, the king was supremacy all over India. In course of time, the Bodhisattva was conceived by the queen consort, and when her time was near come to be delivered, the king died. Now, if the elephant learned news of the king's death, he was sure to break his heart. So he was awaited upon as before, and not a word was said. But the next neighbor, the king of Kosala, heard the king's death. Surely the land is at my mercy, thought he, and marched with a mighty host to the city and beleaguered it. Straight the gates were closed, and a message was sent to the king of Kosala. Our queen is near the time of her delivery, and the astrologers have declared that in 7 days the shall bear a son. If she bears a son, we will not yield the kingdom, but on the 7th day we will give you battle. For so long we pray you wait. And to this the king agreed. In 7 days the queen bore a son. On his name day they called him Prince Weinhard, because, said they, he was born to win the hearts of the people. On the very same day he was born, the townsfolk began to do battle with the king of Kosala. But as he had no leader, little by little the army gave way. Great thought he was. Courtiers told this news to the queen, adding, since our army loses ground on this way, we fear defeat. But the state elephant, our king's bosom friend, has never been told that the king was dead and a son was born, and that the king of Kosala is here to give us a battle. Shall we tell him? Yes, do so, said the queen. So she dressed up the son and laid him in a fine linen cloth, after which she, with all the court, came down from the palace and entered the elephant's stable. There she laid the babe at the elephant's feet, saying, Master, your comrade is dead, but we fear to tell it you, lest might break your heart. This is your comrade's son. The king of Kosala has run a leguer about a city and is making war upon your son. The army is losing ground. Either kill your son yourself, or else win the kingdom back for him. At once, the elephant stroked the child with his trunk, lifted him up on his own head, and making moan and lamentation, he took him down and laid him in his mother's arms. In the words, I will master the king of Kosala, he went forth hastily. Then the courtiers put his armor and caparison upon him, and unlocked the city gate and escorted him thither. The elephant emerging trumpeted and frightened all the host, so that they ran away and broke up the camp. Then seizing the king of Kosala by his top knot, he carried him to the young prince, at whose feet he let him fall. Some rose to kill him, but then the elephant stayed and let the captive king go with this advice. Be careful for the future. Not be presumptuous by reason that our prince is young. After that, the power all over India fell in the Bodhisattva's own hand, and not a foe was able to rise up against him. The Bodhisattva was consecrated at the age of 7 years. King Weinhard. Just was his reign, and all when he came to life's end, he went to swell the hosts of heaven. When the master had ended this discourse, having become perfectly enlightened, he repeated a couple of verses. Prince Weinhard took King Kosala ill-pleased with all he had, but by capturing the greedy king, he made his people glad. So any brother strong in will, who to the refuge flies, who cherishes all good and goes away nirvana lies, by slow degrees will bring about destruction to all ties. And so the master, bringing his teaching to a climax in the eternal nirvana, went to declare the truths and then identify the birth. After the truth, this backsliding brother was established in sainthood. She who now is Maya was then the mother, then his Buddha's mother. This backslider was the elephant who took the kingdom and handed over to the child. Shariputra was the elephant, and I myself was the young prince. So incredible. The Shariputra, the Buddha, and his mother is incredible relations, So, talking about how many lives relationship continues one after another. So, next story is, next one is story number 151, called Rajada Jataka. So this story also the master told while he was living in Jetavana to explain how a king was taught a lesson. This will be set forth in the story. It is said that one day the king of Kosala has just passed sentence in a very difficult case involving moral wrong. After his meal, with his hands not yet dry, he proceeded in his splendid chariot to visit the master. And the king saluted him, his feet beautiful like open lotus flower, and sat down aside. Then the master addressed him in these words: "Why, my lord king, what brings you here at this time of day?" "Sir," said he, I miss my time. Because I was sitting on a difficult case involving moral wrong. Now I have finished it and eaten, and here I am with my hands hardly dry to wait upon you. "My lord king," replied the master, "to judge a cause with justice and impartiality is the right thing. That is the way to heaven. Now, when you first have the advice of a being all wise like me, it is no wonder if you should judge your case fairly and justly. But the wonder is when kings have only had advice of scholars who are not all wise, and yet have decided fairly and justly, avoiding the 4 ways of wickedness, and observing the 10 royal virtues, and after ruling justly have gone to swell to the hosts of heaven." Then, at the king's request, he told the story of an olden time. So this way of telling a story is it shows how things prompted, and then that prompts the Buddha to tell a story. And this is the story. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta was the king of Banaras, the Bodhisattva was conceived by his queen consort, and ceremonies proper to her state having been duly done, she was afterwards safely delivered. On his name day means giving, there's a special naming ceremony, a name they gave him was Prince Brahmadatta. Brahmadatta means one is given by Brahma. In the course of time, he grew up. At 16 years age, he went to Takshila for his education, where he mastered all branches of learning, and on his father's death, he became a king in his stead, and ruled with uprightness and rectitude, administering justice with no regard to his own will or whim. And as he ruled thus justly, his ministers on their part were also just. Thus, while all things were justly done, there was none who brought a false suit into court. Presently, all bustles of suitors ceased within the precincts of the palace. All day long, the ministers might sit on the bench and go away without seeing a single suitor. The courts were deserted. Then the Bodhisattva thought to himself, because of my just government, not one suitor comes to try issue in court. And all the hubbub is quiet. The courts of the law are deserted. Now I must search whether I have any whether I have any fault in me, which if I find, I will eschew it and live a good life hereafter. From that time, he tried continually to find someone who would tell him of a fault. But of all who were about him at court, he would not find one such. Nothing could he hear but good of himself. Perhaps, thought he, they are all so much afraid of me that they say no evil of me, but only good. And so he went about to try those who were outside the walls. But with these it was just the same. Then he made inquisition of the citizens at large, and outside the city questioned those who belonged to the suburbs at the foot for city gates. Still there was none who had any fault to find. Nothing but praises could he hear. Lastly, with intent to try the countryside, he entrusted all government to his ministers and mounted on his carriage, and taking only the driver with him, left the city in disguise. All the country he traversed, even the frontier, but not a fault finder could he light upon. All he could hear was only his praises. So back he turned from the marches and set his face homewards again by high road. Now, it fortuned that at this very time, Mallika, the king of Kosala, had done the very same thing. He too was just a king. He was a just king, and he had been searching for his faults. This must be very golden olden days. But there was none who had any fault to find, and hearing nothing but praise. He had been making inquiry throughout the country, and had then arrived at the same spot. Those two met in place where the carriage road was deeply sunk between two banks, and there was no room for one carriage to pass another. "Get your carriage out of my way," said King Mallika's driver to the driver of the king of Benares. No, driver," said he, out of the way with yours. Know that in this carriage sits the great monarch Brahmadatta, lord of the kingdom of Benares." "No, not so, driver," replied the other. "In this carriage is the great King Mallika, lord of the realm of Kosala. It is for you to make way and give place to the carriage of our king." Why here is a king too?" thought the driver of the king of Benares. "What is the world is to be done?" Then a thought struck him. He would inquire what should be the age of the two kings, so that the younger should give way to the older. And he made inquiry of the other driver how old his king was, but he learned that both were same age. Thereupon he asked the extent of the king's power, wealth, glory, and all the points touching his caste, clan, and his family, discovering that both of them have country 3,000 leagues long, that they were alike in power, wealth, glory, and nature of their family and lineage. Then he thought him that place might be given to the better men. So he requested that the other driver should describe his master's virtue. The men replied by the first verse of poetry following, in which he set forth the monarch's faults, as there were so many virtues. Rough to the rough, King Mallika, the mild with mildness sways, masters the good by goodness, and the bad with badness pays. Give place, O driver, such are this monarch's ways. Oh, said the man of the king of Benares, is that all you have to say about your king's virtue? Yes, said the other. If these are his virtues, what must his vices be? Wise be, then, quoth he, if you will, but let us hear what your king's virtue might be. Listen then, rejoice the first and repeat the second verse. He conquers wrath by mildness, the bad with the goodness sways. He gives the miser vanquishes, and lies with the truth repays. Give place, O driver, such are the monarch's way. At these words, both King Mallika and his driver descended from their carriage and loosened the horses and moved out of the way to give place to the king of Benares. Then the king of Benares gave good admonition to King Mallika, saying, thus and thus must you do. After which he returned to Benares, and then gave alms and did good all his life, till at last he went to swell the hosts of heavens. And King Mallika took the lesson to heart, and after traversing the length and breadth of the land, and lighting upon none he had who had any fault to find, returned to his own city, where he gave alms all his life and did good, till the end he went to the swells of the hosts of heaven as well. When the master had ended this discourse, which he began for the purpose of giving a lesson to the king of Kosala, he identified the birth. Moggallana was the driver of the King Mallika. Ananda was the king. Shariputra was the driver of the king of Benares. But I myself was the king. so incredible relationship. Those past life stories. Next is number 152. The story of the master while staying in his gabled chamber about a barber who lived in Vaishali. This story is told in Vaishali. Yeah? This man, as we are told, used to do shaving and hairdressing, cross-plating for the royal household, kings and queens, princes and princesses. Indeed, he did all of that kind he had to be done. He was a true believer, sheltered in the 3 refuges, resolved to keep the 5 precepts, and from time to time he would listen to the master's discoursing. One day he set out to do his work in his palace, taking his son with him. The young fellow, seeing the Lichavi girl dressed up fine and grand like a nymph, fell in love for desire of her. He said to his father, as they left the palace in company, there is a girl. If I get her, I shall live. But if I don't, there is nothing but death for me. He would not touch a morsel of food, but lay down, hugging the bedstead. His father, who found him, said, why, son, don't set your mind on forbidden fruit. You are nobody. Ababa's son, this Lichavi's girl is a high-born lady. You are no match for her. I'll find you somebody else, a girl of your own place and station. But the lad would not listen to him. Then came mother, brother and sister, aunt, uncle, all his kinsfolk, and all his friends and companions, trying to pacify him, but pacify him they could not. So he pined and pined away and lay there until he died. Then the father performed his obsequies. What's the obsequies? His obsequies, and did what is usual to do for the spirits of the dead. Must be funeral, yeah. By and by, when the first edge of the grief had worn off, he thought he would wait upon the master. Taking a large present of flowers, scents, and perfumes, he prepared to Mahavana and did reverence to the master, saluted him, and sat down on one side. Why have you kept out of sight all this time, layman? The master asked. Then the man told him what had happened. Said the master, "Oh, layman, this is not the first time he has perished by setting his heart on what he must not have. This is why what he has done before." Then the layman's request, the master told the story in the past lives. So this is the boy had died in this manner. Buddha's told this is not the first time. He has other past similar stories from the past. This reminded me of the Prince of Nepal, who was very set on to marry the girl he met, but his mother and the family wouldn't allow him. So dreadful thing in that he just killed everybody. It's incredible. So if Buddha could tell the past life story, would be very interesting. What were they? Would be interesting, wouldn't it? Anyway, this is the story. Once upon a time, while the king Brahmadatta was king of Benares, the Bodhisattva came into the world as a young lion in the region of Himalaya. Of the same family, there were some younger brothers and one sister, and all of them lived in a golden cave. Now hard by this cave was a cave of crystal on a silver hill where a jackal lived. By and by the lions lost their parents by the stroke of death. Then they used to leave the lioness, their sister, behind the cave while they ranged for food, which they obtained. They would bring it back to her to eat. Now the jackals had caught sight of this lioness and fell in love with her. But while the old lion and lioness lived, he would win no access. Now, when the 7 brothers went to seek food, he came from his crystal cave and made all haste to the golden cave, where, taking his stand before the young lioness, he addressed her slyly with these seductive and tempting words. "Oh, lioness, I'm a forest creature, so are you. Therefore, you be my mate, and I will be your husband. We will live together in friendship and amity, and you shall love me always." Now on hearing this, lioness thought to herself, "This jackal here is mean among beasts, vile, and a man of a low caste, but I am esteemed to be one of the royal issue. That he to me should so speak is unseemly and evil. How can I live after hearing such a thing said? I will hold my breath until I shall die, then bethinking her a while. Nay, quoth she, to die so would not be comely. My brother will soon come home again. I'll tell them first, and then I'll put an end to myself." The jackal, finding that no answer came, felt sure she cared nothing for him. So back he went to his crystal cave and lay down in much misery. Now one of the young lions, having killed a buffalo or an elephant or what not, himself ate some of it and brought back a share for his sister, which he gave her, inviting her to eat. "No, brother," says she, "not a bite will I eat, for I must die." "Why must that be?" he said. And she told him what had happened. "Where's this jackal now?" he asked. She saw him lying in the crystal cave and thinking he was in the sky. She said, "Why, brother, cannot you see him there on Silver Mountain, lying in the sky, up in the sky?" The young lion, unaware that jackal lay in the crystal cave, and deeming that he was truly in the sky, made a spring, as lions do, to kill him, and struck against the crystal, which burst his heart asunder, and falling to the foot of the mountain, he perished straight away. Dramatic. Then came in another, to whom the lioness told the same tale. This lion did even the first, and fell dead by the mountain food. When 6 of the brother lions had perished in this way, last of all entered the Bodhisattva. When she had told her story, he inquired, "Where was the jackal now?" "There he is," said she, "up in the sky above Silver Mountain." Bodhisattva thought, "Jackals lying in the sky are nonsense. I know what it is. He's lying in the crystal cave." So he repaired to the mountain's foot, and there he saw his 6 brothers lying dead. "I see how it is," thought he. These were all foolish, lacked the fullness of wisdom, not knowing that this is the crystal cave. They beat their hearts out against him and were killed. That is what comes of acting in rashness without due reflection. And he repeated the first stanza. "Who rashly undertakes an enterprise, not counting all the issue may arise, like one who burns his mouth in eating food, falls victim to the plans he did devise." After repeating these lines continued, "My brothers wanted to kill this jackal, but no, not how to lay their plans cleverly. So they leapt up too quickly at him, so came to their death. This I will not do, but I will make the jackal burst his own heart as he lies there in the crystal cave." So he espied out the path whereby the jackal used to go up and down, and turning that way he roared thrice, and the lions roar, that earth and heaven together were all one great roaring. The jackal lying in the crystal cave was frightened and astounded, so that his heart burst, and he perished on the spot incontinently. The master continued, "Thus did the jackal perish on hearing the lions roar, and becoming perfectly enlightened, he repeated the second stanza. On Dadara the lion gave a roar, and made Mount Dadara resound again. Hard by a jackal lived, he feared all saw, to hear the sound, and burst his heart in twain." Thus did our lion do this jackal to death. Then he laid his brother together in one grave, and told the sisters they were dead, and comforted her. And he lived the rest of his days in the golden cave, until he passed away to the place which his merits had earned for him. When the master has ended this discourse, he revealed the truths and identified the births. At the conclusion of the truth, the layman was established in the fruit of the first path. The barber's son was the jackal. Barber's son of today was then the jackal. The Lichavi girl was the young lioness, and 6 younger lions are now the 6 elders, and I myself am the eldest lion. Incredible story of past lives. So that's from that. So now I'm going to move on to the one from Arya Sura's Sanskrit story. This story is because this story is Okay, this story is the story of the hungry tigress who Buddha fed his body to. So this happened to be the first story in Arya Sura's Jatakamala stories. So this is the story of the hungry tigress. And of course, the hungry tiger story that is here is a little bit incomplete as far as I know. So I'll supplement what is not included in this. Even in former birth, the Lord showed his innate, disinterested, and immense love towards all creatures, and identify himself with all beings. For this reason, we ought to have the utmost faith in the Buddha, the Lord. This will be instanced by the following great performance, Lord, in previous birth, which has been celebrated by my Guru, the venerator of the three jewels, on authority because of his thorough study of virtues, and beloved by his Guru by virtue of his religious practices. So this is Arya Sura talking about how much his teacher admired and inspired by the Bodhisattva's incredible selfless sacrifice. In the time of the Bodhisattva, who afterwards becomes our Lord, benefited the world by manifold outpourings of his compassion, gifts, kind words, secure, and similar blameless deeds of wisdom cultivating mind, quite in accordance with the excessive engagement to which he had bound himself. He took his birth in a most eminent and mighty family of Brahmins, distinguished by the purity of their conduct, owing to their attachment to their religious duties. Being purified the Jatakamala and the other sacraments in due order, he grew up in a short time, owing to innate quickness of his understanding, the excellent aid in his study, his eagerness for learning, and his zeal. He obtained the mastership of 18 branches of science in all arts which were not incompatible with customs of his family. To the Brahmins, he was an authority like a holy writ. To the Kshatriyas, a venerable king. To the masses, he appeared like an embodied thousand-eyed one. To those who longed for knowledge, he was a helpful father. So, in consequence of his prosperous destiny, the result of merits formerly earned, the large store of wealth, distinction, and fame fell to his share. But the Bodhisattva took no delight in such things. His thoughts had been purified by his constant study of the law. He had become familiar with world renunciation. His former behavior had wholly declared his mind. He saw the many kinds of sin which beset the worldly pleasures. So he shook off the household estate as if it were an illness. He retired to some plateau which he adorned by his presence. There both his detachment from the world and by his wisdom bright and tranquility, he confounded, as it were, the people in the world, who by attachment to bad occupations are disinclined for the calmness of the wise. His calmness, full of friendliness, spread about, it seems, and penetrated into the hearts of the ferocious animals, as to make them cease injuring one another, live like ascetics. By dint of the pureness of his conduct, his self-control, his contentment, his compassion, he was no less friend even to the people world who were unknown to him than all creatures were friend to him. As he wanted little, he did not know the art of hypocrisy, and he had abandoned the desire for gain, glory, and pleasure. So he caused even the deities to be propitious and worshipped towards him. On the other hand, those whose affections he gained in his former state by his virtues, hearing of his ascetic life, left their families and their relations, went up to him as to the embodied salvation in order to become his disciples. He taught his disciple to, as best he could, good conduct, shila, chastity, purification of the organs of senses, constant attentiveness, detachment from the world, and the concentration of the mind to the meditation on friendliness, maitri, and the rest. Most of his numerous disciples attained perfection in consequence of his teaching, by which his holy road, salvation, was established. People were put on the excellent path of the world renunciation. Now doors of evil being shut, as it were, but the ways of happiness wide open, like high roads. It once happened that great-minded, the Mahasattva, the prince's name is Mahasattva, was rambling along the shrubby caverns of mountain, well adapted to the practice of meditation, in order to enjoy at his age this existing order of things. Ajita, his disciple at that time, accompanied him. So this depicts the story of Mahasattva going with only one friend, but actual story tells that he was accompanied by his elder brothers. They all were going in the bush together in a kind of a royal kind of excursion. Now below the cavern of the mountain, he beheld a young tigress that could scarcely move from the place, her strength being exhausted by the labor of whelping. Her sunken eyes and her emaciated belly betokened her hunger, and she was regarding her own offspring as food, who, thirsting for the milk of her udders, had come near her, trusting their mother and fearless, but she brawled at them, as if they were strange to her, with prolonged harsh roarings. So this talking about, this is Arya Sura's writing, is very poetic, and thankfully is much larger print. So this story talking about the mother was so weak that she could not feed herself, and the young cubs were just as hungry and thirsty, and they were crawling towards her, hoping to get some milk from her, but she wouldn't have a clue. She was so hungry that the more nearer the cubs got, the more danger it looked imminent that she will devour them. On seeing her, the Bodhisattva, though composed in mind, was shaken with compassion by the suffering of his fellow creature, as the Lord of Mount Meru is by an earthquake. So it shook him like his own, and like he couldn't find any sense, purpose, anything, do anything but to feel the suffering of the hungry mother and the 5 cubs. It shook him, yeah? It is a wonder how the compassionate, be their constancy ever be so evident in the greatest suffering of their own, are touched by grief, however small, of another. Yeah, it's talking about the how to feel compassion. If one is able to feel the compassion, that is when somebody is suffering. What somebody is about to do somebody. Usually you will take sides, you will react, and you will throw stones at the mother or whatever. But he could feel the suffering of all the 5 cubs and the mother, and of course all sentient beings. So the grief was overwhelming for him, and there was no other things but what can I do to remedy their suffering. And his powerful pity made him utter, so that he was just completely he is able to express his compassion. Agitate made him repeat to his pupil the following words, manifesting his excellent nature. Now, of course, this Arya Sura is very poetic, you know. So this Mahasattva has his attendant or servant with him. He speaks to his servant. My dear, he exclaimed, behold the worthlessness of samsara. This animal seeks to feed on her very young ones. Hunger causes her to transgress love's law. Yeah. So it's talking about that how worthless samsara is. This animal is so hungry that she is at the brink of eating her own young. And he says hunger is so excruciatingly bad that she doesn't know how to practice love. He says transgress love's law. Alas, fie upon the ferocity of self-love. He says, look at the demerit of self-cherishing. Look at the demerit of self-cherishing. That makes a mother wish to make her own meal with the bodies of her own offspring. Of course, this is very dramatic. It's exactly if you see the two people like that, the selfishness is so bad, so ferocious, that the son or the mother or the husband or the wife or whatever, they don't know what they are doing to the other. That's their own mother, that's their own father, or that's own whatever it is that he's talking about. Who sought to foster the foe? Yeah. Who ought to foster the foe? Whose name is self-love, by whom one may be compelled to action like this. So he's just astonished. And go then quickly, look about for some means of appeasing her hunger, that she may not injure her young ones and herself. I too shall endeavor to avert her from that rash act. I can see this can be a very nice play. Very nice play. The disciple promised to do so. It looks like here the story is that he asked the disciple to go and do something about it. Disciple promised to do so, went off in search of food, yet the Bodhisattva had but used a pretext to turn him off, he considered thus. So he sent his attendant to look for some food, but by that time he had already decided what to do. Why should I search after meat from the body of another while the whole of my body is available? Not only is the getting of the meat in itself a matter of chance, but I should also lose the opportunity of doing my duty. Yeah, see, he realized, what on earth, why should look for another body when there's a body here, And so he says, what's the point of looking for another chance when I'm here, there, right? Opportunity. My duty is to be of use and service to other sentient beings. Further, this body being brute, frail and pithless, ungrateful, always impure and source of suffering, he is not wise who should not rejoice at it being spent for the benefit of another. Wow. Now he realized the greatest giving. He realized this body, if I were to keep this is brute, this is frail, this is pitiless, this is useless, and this is ungrateful, and whatever I do, this is not. So what's the point of giving this? But better to rejoice to benefit somebody else. There are but two things that make one disregard the grief of another: attachment to one's own pleasure and the absence of the power of helping. But I cannot have pleasure while another grieves. That I have the power to help, why should I be indifferent? This is exactly the Bodhisattva now thinks that what's the point of me being alive? And elsewhere he says, how many lives I have already had. Each I have died uselessly, fed and clothed for no purpose, and died uselessly. Now at this time it is right for me to die with meaningfulness. And if being able to succor I were to show indifference even to an evildoer immersed in grief, in my mind I suppose would feel the remorse for an evil deed, burning like shrubs caught by the fire grate. Therefore, I'll kill my miserable body by casting it down into the precipice, and with my corpse I shall preserve the tigress from killing her young, and the young one from dying by the teeth of their mother. So here here the story goes that the Bodhisattva Mahasattva wished to therefore throw himself into the precipice and kill himself so that the mother will eat. And other stories says that he actually cut some very sharp thorns and then he bled himself and let the tigers come near to him, and then he let her lick the blood, and then slowly he let her eat. So this story shows that he threw himself. But if he threw himself, then she has to throw somewhere near her in the precipice. In any case, so. Even more by doing so, I set an example to those who long for the good of the world. So these days people go to Namo Buddha. That's outside Kathmandu. There, about 3 hours drive from Kathmandu, there is a place called Namo Buddha, where Buddha fed the body to the tigress. He says, I will set an example those who long for the good of the world. I encourage the feeble. I rejoice those who understand the meaning of charity. Stimulate the virtues. I cause disappointment to the great host of Mara, but gladness to those who love the Buddha's virtue. I confound the people who are absorbed in selfishness and are subdued by egotism and lust. I give a token of faith to the adherents of the most excellent of vehicles, but I fill with astonishment those who sneer at deeds of charity. I clear the highway to heaven in a manner pleasing to the charitable among men. Finally, that wish I yearned for. When I have the opportunity of benefiting others with the offering of my own limbs, I shall accomplish it now, and so acquire ere long complete wisdom. Verily, as surely as this determination does not proceed from ambition, not from thirst for glory, nor is the means of gaining heaven, nor royal dignity, as surely as I do care even for supreme and everlasting bliss for myself, but for securing the benefit of others, as surely may I gain by it power of taking away and imparting for over the same time the world's sorrow and world's happiness, just as the sun takes away darkness and imparts light. Whether I shall be remembered when virtue is seen to be practiced, or made conspicuous, when the tale of my exploit is told, in every way may I constantly benefit the world, promote happiness. So exactly. So this kind of story needs to be read and told again and again, not become tired of telling again or reading again. Why? Because every time you hear this, the Buddha says that it will benefit the world. It will promote happiness in that is possible when you realize the demerit of selfishness and the benefit of cherishing others. He says, may my death will be useful. After so making up his mind, delighted at the thought, he was to destroy his own life for securing the benefit of others, to the amazement even of the calm minds of the deities. He gave up his body. The sound of the Bodhisattva's body falling down stirred the curiosity and the anger of the tigress. She desisted from her disposition of making a slaughter of her whelps and cast her eyes all around. As soon as she perceived the lifeless body of the Bodhisattva, she rushed hastily upon it and commenced to devour it. See, you can see the Arya Sura is a beautiful poem. But his disciple, coming back without meat, as he had got none, not seeing his teacher, looked about for him. Then he beheld the young tigress feeding on the lifeless body of the Bodhisattva, and admiration of the extraordinary greatness of his performance, driving back his emotion of sorrow and pain, he probably gave a fair utterance to his veneration to the teacher's attachment to virtue by his monologue. The monologue is this: "Oh, how merciful, how great-minded was to people afflicted by distress, how indifferent he was to his own welfare, how he has brought to perfection a virtuous conduct of the pious and dashed to pieces the splendid glory of their adversaries." How he has displayed clinging to virtues, his heroic, fearless, immense love, how his body, which was already precious for his virtues, has now forcibly been turned into a vessel of highest veneration. And although by his innate kindness he was as patient as earth, how intolerant he was of the suffering of others. Now, and how my own roughness of mind is evidenced by the contrast of this splendid act of heroism of his. Verily, the creatures are not to be commiserated now, having got him as their protector. Mahamantama, forsooth, is now sighing away, being disturbed and in the dread of defeat. In every way, veneration be to that illustrious great being, Mahasattva, of exuberant compassion, of boundless goodness, and refuge of all creatures. Yea, that Bodhisattva, for the sake of creatures, and told matter over to his fellow disciples. Then his disciples and also Gandharvas, Yakshas, snakes, and chiefs of devas, expressing their countenance, their admiration for his deed, covered the ground that held the treasure of his bones with profusion of wreath, clothes, jewel ornaments, and sandal powder. So this is talking about how the whole place become now honored as a holy site. So then, even in former birth, the Lord showed his innate disinterested and immense love towards all creatures, and identify himself with all creatures. For this reason, we ought to have the utmost faith in the Buddha, the Lord. And also, this is to be propounded. And having obtained this faith in the Buddha, the Lord, we ought to strive for feeling the highest gladness. In this manner, our faith will have its sanctuary. Likewise, we must listen with attention to the preaching of the law, since it has been brought to us by means of hundreds of difficult hardships. And in sermons on the subject of compassion, thus is to be said, in this manner, compassion, moving us to act for the benefit of others, is product of exceedingly excellent nature. The story of hungry tigress, which does not appear in Pali Jataka or in Charyaka Pitaka, is alluded to in the Bodhisattva Avadana Palika of Kshemendra. So it's talking in the Pali Jatakamalas, those two books, we couldn't find it. There is no mention of that. But it is found in the Avadana. Avadana is a legend of the Buddha wrote by Kshemendra. In that it is found. There the Bodhisattva, on occasion of a similar acts of self-denial and heroism in a later birth, says, formerly on seeing the hungry tigress preparing to eat her whelps, I gave her my body in order to avert these without hesitation. And in the 51st Pallava of the story is narrated at length, verse number 28 all the way to 50. It differs in some points from this. So does this redaction of Southern Buddhist told by Spence Hardy's translation. And the one I have read in Tibetan story, it's even a little bit more different. While this was all happened, the three brothers have already reached home, and the queen mother was sleeping, and she had a disturbing dream. And in the dream, all these doves were playing and frolicking in the bush, and all of a sudden, a hawk swooped down and killed the youngest, fetched the youngest dove, and then she woke up. When she woke up, she couldn't believe her dream. She thought something definitely as bad has happened to her youngest prince. And the moment she woke up and very heart was pounding, and then she heard her sons have returned. When her princes were returned, but she asked, where is the youngest? And they say, oh, he was coming. He said he has something private to do in the forest, but he was coming. He should be coming home. And then waited, and they couldn't see him. And then they got worried. They went looking for him. And when they found the body is completely devoured, eaten by then only son, bones left. And so the story goes, Buddha says, at that time, he says, that that the 5 cubs, this story told about the 5 monks, yeah. The 5 monks that are who have turned out to become my first disciple, they were the 5 cubs, 5 cubs. I was the tigress, and then there are other characters who were what. So you do not earn a fortune of becoming Buddha's first disciple to attain arhatship unless you have some past karmas, like he has saved them from being devoured by their mother. So this time he saved them from samsara altogether. So it's talking about how past karmic connection of hungry tigers, because hungry tigers, though she wanted to devour her, but she had no knowing what she was doing. But the mother, of course, due to hunger, was at the brink of eating. But the Bodhisattva, the Mahasattva, saved the five cubs, and so they're saying that these five mendicants were saved this time by the Buddha as enlightened one, and giving him the teaching. So the Bodhisattva himself has renounced his own life. In past life, he gave his body to feed their mother, so that they can live. They can live. In this life, Bodhisattva renounced his family, to save the world, so to speak. To start with, to liberate the 5 monks. So this kind of story is not only is told to instill faith in the incredible selfless Bodhisattva's deeds. Not only it is talked about, all these stories, most of them anyway, particularly the last one, is story of the practice of dana paramita. Dana is a practice of generosity and the giving of the things we don't need or we have too much of. Or is not really giving. It's just getting rid of, I suppose. Getting rid of what we don't need. Giving of what others need. Others need more than you, and you have. That's the only one you have. This is not like a spare book or a second-hand car. Or no, we're talking about the only body. Giving the only body is the greatest gift. Greatest gift. So being able to give one's body and give one's own body unconditionally with those amazing reflections. He said, what's the point of me becoming attached to this body that is brute and that is essenceless, pithless, and cause of suffering and burden to other people and so on. And then he just realized the ways, the pros and cons of the pros of giving, cons of keeping his body, and so that kind of a kind of vision, the foresight, is what really makes the bodhisattvas the seers. Bodhisattvas are the seers of long-term benefit. And he said, look, if this story was ever going to be told and read, may this become cause of benefit, because not only us now listening to now, of course, our mind is very much geared to listen to this story because we believe in the Buddha and the teachings. Not only that, there will be lots of times you will remember, oh, maybe, I can't even give this to this person, give up this for this person. Look, Buddha gave his whole body, in many situations like that. So I have a long way to go. but I should at least, in honoring the story that I heard, I should at least be more patient with this, not being so this or that, but rather should try to do this. And that's exactly what he's talking about, that may this story be told and become a cause of happiness that empowers and inspires and shifts people, and not to stay stuck in their useless attachment to the brute body or to material possessions or their energy or whatever it is. So that's exactly the vision. This is we're talking about. This story predates the Shakyamuni Buddha. This story predates Shakyamuni Buddha. It's Buddha. Shakyamuni told the story, told the stories. Who were what? The 5 cubs were the 5 monks, and I was the tigress. And so on, telling that. So incredible kinds of acts. So the Mahayana Buddhist teaching, and Theravadan too, because they also have preserved all these Jatakamala stories. If they can't believe they are Bodhisattva acts, what they think Buddha is. Not another Arhat. He definitely was a Bodhisattva in every one of those lives. So Jatakamala story challenges people's belief or lack of belief about more than one life. A lot of people these days have no elasticity in their mind to think about the existence of past life, let alone future lives. As a result of that, they have no belief. They couldn't believe the life because they can't see or remember. So the fact that they can't remember is only it's their demerit, not because things didn't exist. So if you can't remember particular things when you were 15-year-old on September 27, what did you whole day? You can't remember anything, doesn't mean that didn't happen. Let's look at the diaries. People have diaries of forgotten people. They're writing them. Buddha has this unforgettable diaries of all his past lives he could remember. So therefore, it's very important for us to not just to use these stories to crack our kind of faith and belief in the law of many lives before and after, because these days you couldn't believe how many people don't want to think about existence of life after death, and that's nihilist. That's an extreme view holder. According to Buddhism, that's a nihilist. Thinking there is no life after death is nihilist. And thinking that they will become God or ultimate salvation is eternalist. But here in Buddhism, each and every one of our lives has a kind of future, depending to what kind of things we are doing, or we will do, or we will stop doing. It definitely is completely changeable, depending on what we do. And of course, sometimes you are passively beneficial, like the 5 cubs. The 5 cubs were the mercy of the mother, and they were going to be fed by the mother anyway. If the mother becomes a little bit fed, and she can let them suck her milk anyway. So eventually the five cubs are going to be the beneficiaries, So but they themselves have a collective karma of being those 5 cubs in that lifetime, and 5 disciples of the Buddha from Shakya kingdom. And I'm sure you have such 3 people in your life, or 4 people in your life, and that you did this and that in past lives, the 3 dogs, or yourself as the dog owner, or the mother dog, or whatever. I'm sure. So when we start thinking like this, sometimes when we have some difficulties handling with some situation, those people saying, what am I going to do with this person? We should maybe we have done similar things in the past. And so I should be a little bit gentler with this. We have some unfinished karma from the past. Maybe I'm a little bit too selfish. I'm so attached to me and my views, my opinions, and so that's the kind of benefit they're talking about. Buddha talking about you're just thinking, oh, that's a great type of thing. Of course, it's a benefit if you believe in that or you get inspired. But even more so, it can enable able to can unfold our own stories, and then we begin to accept things and be gentle towards each other or our past, so that we do not, escalate the unfinished karmas of the past, but learn to accept and purify and kindness. So that's talking about the benefit. When a bodhisattva practice prohibitive discipline, because he prohibited to preserve his life, he practiced prescriptive discipline by giving his body to the hungry tigress. So it seems to me, on the surface, he helped the hungry tigress, but in the long run, he practiced benevolent discipline. That is continuously the story of the feeding the hungry tigress is told. People go to that small place in the bush outside Kathmandu. Thousands of people go and flock to that little place where they have put a statue of Buddha feeding his body to a hungry tiger. People go there and make prayers and purify the karma, make offerings, and so on. So it's become a pilgrimage site. And these kind of stories are depicted in incredible Buddhist literature, written in gold and silver ink on handmade papers and kept at home. And in Tibetan tradition, that every first lunar month, first 10 days, His Holiness Dalai Lama always give the teaching on Jatakamala stories, and depending to how available his time is. And so that these kind of stories are not forgotten, and remembered and told, and then inspired, and then people learn to emulate. So it is for this reason we are doing this. Thank you for everyone's attention and your company, and I'm sure we have lots of learnings to do. To reduce our attachment to this brute, pitless body, and maybe try to chop up a little bit, symbolically speaking. Maybe have a little sweat and tear, maybe a little bit sort of gasping and tired and doing certain things for the benefit of others. So we definitely have a lot to learn, and for that purpose we will dedicate the merits. As we know, we live in a very difficult time. The world is incredibly divided, having incredible war and killings. When you think about the terrible wars in the 21st century, I can't bear. What a world we live in. And only if people knew how to practice kindness and tolerance and so on, then there would be much more different. How many thousands and thousands are killed, and danger of the likelihood of killing more as a justification of what other did to me and my people is incredibly so sad. So may these teachings inspire to put an end to such senseless act of war and violence. So with this we dedicate the merits, and we practice kindness and tolerance and understanding. Om Bade Mere Me Hoga Da Deva Benzaga Hom Neza Me Hale Bereda Bevronde Oshana Bada Rezenede Herenda Maya Nadije Vadewa Merera Hever Mehobe Begazeleveza Tehoda Maya Jiji Kareje Manju Juniode Enzama Tabadra Jelaiva Follow it all the example Aisha Dege all this Mede excellent body Jida Tebe Vere no hedanzo Where has been bo Mehedengri Frele Vedadi Generation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you. Welcome.